According to a lot of people, Shadow of the Erdtree is difficult, but you know what else is hard? Picking a game from the Steam summer sale to purchase. I hope you guys gave some indie games a chance. And in that same essence, if you're looking to be a character designer, I hope you give this game industry proven artists budding Patreon a consideration. Welcome to another episode of the Artist Patreon review series, and I must say, since starting this series, I've been introduced to a couple of new artists whose work I certainly enjoy. Please keep them coming, even if they don't have a Patreon, I still love discovering artists I've never heard of. Anyway, I'm kind of ass at drawing weapons and metal, but with a single free tutorial on YouTube from this artist, I managed to draw something halfway decent. Today we're gonna be taking a look at Christophe Young's Patreon. He's a character artist I was introduced to via the comment section and someone who I consider to be a bit of an enigma as I literally could not find a lot of information about him. In his own words, he's nuked his Instagram account, which arguably is warranted. I don't think I need to mention the drama surrounding Meta at the moment. He's also illustrated the cover for Imagine FX issue number 206, and you can actually watch his full process video of the illustration on his YouTube channel. He's also got a few tutorials on his YouTube channel, so you can check that out if you want. But you know what else he's worked on?
My name is Christophe Young. I'm a character concept artist at Behavior Interactive, working on Dead by Daylight.
You heard right, he made art for the hit horror survival game where you hold left click for 90% of the time, Dead by Daylight. He was also previously a senior concept artist at Turbulent Games, which is a studio that's currently working on Star Citizen, I believe. Taking the fact that Christophe is a character artist, he's probably worked on one of these. And if you have the ears of a fox, you may have noticed that I used the past tense, and that's because according to his Patreon post, he's left the position to focus full-time on Patreon.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Jokes aside, this is a pretty good thing to see. I love seeing more and more artists go on and start their own ventures, taking the reins and deciding their own fate. I also did manage to dig up some of his older work thanks to iamag.co. You can take a look if you want, I'll leave links down below. That being said, the Patreon is really in its beginning stages. Anyway, despite knowing of Christophe Young for such a short amount of time, looking at his art, I can only describe it as, can't believe I'm really saying this, juicy. Style-wise, this is a level that I would one day like to get to, which is gonna take quite a bit, but you know, that's the whole point of being an artist. I also really like how he thinks outside of the box and provides his own unique spins on characters, like for example this painting of a siren. I myself would have never thought of using the human shoulder blades and ribs as the starting point for fish gills. I also really find this painting fascinating just because of how close to realism it looks. I don't know, I just find it really cool. Call me uncultured or whatever, I'm a simple person. If I see cool shit, I like it. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ, look at the details. But overall, with an artist of this caliber who has proven work experience in the industry, he's absolutely someone you would want to walk you through on how to design a compelling character. Once again, for those of you who watch this channel, you know how these things go, but if you're new, I don't show anything from the Patreon itself out of respect of not leaking anything. Also, everything I say here is purely opinion, and any suggestions I make is completely up to Christophe if he wants to consider them or not. Again, this video is not about me telling anyone how to run their business, it's all purely personal thoughts. Now with that out of the way, let's start reviewing the Patreon. Here's the rating scheme out of 5 stars. So it's an 18 plus Patreon, so if you're over 18 or are 18, you can go ahead and confirm your age. If you're not 18, but really, there's nothing extreme in the Patreon, it's just the nude subjects for figure drawing sessions. Anyway, Christophe Young really offers one tier as of now. Like I said, he's just started putting his full focus on Patreon just recently, and it's a pretty young Patreon, having only started last year. The tier is called Character Design Academy for $12.50 Canadian. In this tier, you get access to his previous posts, his artwork, live drawing sessions on Sundays for about an hour and a half give or take, weekly figure and portrait studies, brushes, Discord access, and I'm guessing critiques/reviews. I'm assuming that's what overlay analysis means, and finally, you also get some bonus content like Q&A and some challenges. Starting off with the goodies. Being able to access all the previous posts, which include past workshops, tutorials, and live streams, is a major bonus in my opinion. It also says study guides in the tier description, but I haven't seen anything of the sort yet. I could be wrong though, so if anyone else is sub to his Patreon, let me know. Also, his announcement post about going full-time on Patreon suggests at a potential one-on-one mentorship tier. Obviously, this may change down the line as he develops the Patreon, but I believe that this is a solid foundation. And considering the fact that there's a huge amount of artists out there who want to focus on character design, the proof of demand is there, and if Christophe really leans into it, his Patreon has the potential to really pop off. Not to mention the fact that you get to actually see Christophe draw once a week. It's extremely valuable as he describes his thought process as it goes along, as well as sprinkling some of his personal sauce. That sounds wrong. Personal techniques when it comes to art. You also get his Photoshop files so you can really analyze how he uses the layers and try to understand the nitty-gritty. He's also put up his brushes as part of the deal, but again, as you should know by now, if you don't practice your art, the brushes aren't gonna do shit for you. For the Discord community, it's got your standard channels. So you've got general chat, Q&A, meme, hobby channels. And for the art specific channels, there's your art share, group critique where you can get your work critiqued by others, a channel for figure drawing critiques for his figure drawing sessions, as well as a channel for his monthly challenges, which I'll get to in the tutorials part. Alongside that, you've also got channels dedicated to resources. As far as the community goes, they seem to be pretty welcoming as far as I see it. That being said, however, there isn't too much happening, meaning there isn't much activity in the Discord itself, but in contrast, there is more chat activity in his live streams. If you guys decide to sub to his Patreon, go ahead and start a conversation. Share your art, whether it's to show off or for critique, anything to help him build his community and, you know, to help him find his people. Again, I don't think I need to say this, but do not pollute the well and be respectful to one another in the Discord. Don't be an embarrassment to yourself. Overall though, I would give the goodies section full stars. Now for the tutorials. So Christophe's actually got a couple of tutorials on YouTube that are pretty in-depth themselves. The tutorial I watched for the half-decent weapon I drew was the one on dramatic lighting, and I actually learned some pretty valuable techniques from that video. And he's also got an entire series on YouTube for character design that pretty much counts as a bit of a mini course itself. You can absolutely get a lot of amazing information from his YouTube tutorials, and you can also use them as a bit of a vibe check for his teaching style. As for the Patreon tutorials, they come in the form of his workshop live streams, and if you miss those streams, there's no need to panic, he uploads them to his Patreon. You're pretty much guaranteed a high quality, in-depth 1 hour plus session with an industry professional covering topics specifically related to character design. So we're talking about anatomy, shape design, fashion, posing, and anything that a character might have in their arsenal. He's even done one workshop where he designs armor for a sketch. And then of course you have tutorials on how he personally does lighting and shading, which I think is pretty much standard across the board when it comes to art tutorials anywhere. In terms of teaching style, it's a really nice and smooth blend of both demo and lecture, with demo taking most of the live stream. And because of how his tutorials come in the form of live workshops, it really does kind of feel like you're in a classroom, although you're, you know, online and separated by a screen. Being someone who's worked in the industry, he also points out common mistakes that people make when it comes to a subject and does his best to try and make the topic easier to understand for people. For example, in his clothing folds tutorial, which is phenomenal if I must say, he explains the concept of both compression and tension. He even goes as far as pointing out common tension points in characters and clothing in the exercise section of his workshop. He also gave a pretty nifty trick on drawing zigzag folds, and good god did it make a difference in how my brain absorbed the concept. To supplement his tutorials, he has monthly challenges where a topic is given and he sends you out to find appropriate references and draw the topic as well as you can, which you can then submit to the Discord channel. Afterwards, he'll pluck your drawings and make a video giving you some feedback in a respectful manner without compromising your style to the point of being unrecognizable. It's a minty breath of fresh air, like those assholes over at TikTok could learn a thing or two about fixing art. That being said, however, the last challenge was in September of last year, and that was more of a go off and do your own thing, and the last challenge review was in August of last year, and this may have been because of deadline / the schedule from a studio job. But seeing as he's now focusing on developing his Patreon full time, we may see the challenges make a comeback. One thing I would maybe like to see is, seeing as how there's a lot of valuable information from his live streams, it would be nice if he could provide notes on some key takeaways. It's not completely necessary, it's just a nice to have type of thing. Another thing I would like to see with his workshops is if it's something like a live anatomy study or clothing study for the session, he could either provide the references so the patrons can draw along with him and submit them to the Discord so he can review some of the submissions. Alternatively, he can also have the patrons go off on their own during the workshop to find references to draw pertaining to the topic and then submit them to the Discord for review. Finally, it would also be nice if he changed the naming conventions for his live streams so that instead of the date of the live stream being the title, it could be the subject matter. here. Those are just a couple of ideas I'm spitballing. An interesting point of note though is that the reason why he makes these real-time process videos / live streams is because he hasn't seen any artist post anything similar. So it's actually what makes him kind of unique in a sense. I don't know, I could be wrong about that, but he does have a bit of a point there. I don't see a lot of artists posting their real-time processes. And it's actually pretty cool to see these live drawing streams as we get to see him explain his thought processes as he goes along, and if he thinks something is worth explaining in detail, he'll do it. Now for the tutorials rating. Admittedly, it's a little difficult for me to give a grounded rating simply because of Christophe's unique way of going about teaching. Usually when I think of art tutorial videos, I think of someone defining the topic and then making like a 10-minute to 1 hour long video explaining the topic. None of that 10-second bullshit you see nowadays. With Christophe though, it's pure live workshop sessions where he gives a brief lecture / intro to what he's doing for the live stream that day, and then we see him draw live while giving his insights. The only thing I'll say about it though is that the more recent live streams have been mostly of him working on his own personal drawings and talking about his process in real time, as well as an anatomy study, which is great in themselves because he provides such good information. However, the last fully focused design workshop live stream that had a defined topic was, if I'm not mistaken, December 17 of last year, where he was talking about the finalizing process of a character design he was working on for the workshop. Again, now that he's focusing on Patreon full-time, we might see those types of live streams making a comeback. Overall though, I would give it 3.5 stars for now. It's most likely going to go up in rating as he workshops the Patreon. Now for the price rating, I would give it 4 stars. As a little rough around the edges the Patreon is right now in my opinion, what Christophe is offering in terms of how he goes about teaching is extremely unique. Like I said, I haven't seen any other artists I've covered offer weekly live workshops, and I think that can play a huge factor in making his Patreon a successful one. And the fact that you get access to all his previous live streams once you sub is a major bonus. Look, $12.50 Canadian per month for weekly live workshop classes where you get an intimate look at a goated artist's process while he's providing you quality lessons and insights at the same time.
Nice.
Not to mention the other bonus content he's providing, such as Q&As and challenges, which I'm thinking may make a comeback soon. As for the final verdict, is Christophe Young's Patreon worth it? For me, it has the potential to be a killer Patreon. While it is a little rough around the edges like I said, I think it's a solid foundation for what could potentially be a solid space for learning character design. And if Christophe really leans into the weekly workshop aspect of his Patreon, it will absolutely set him apart from other artists who use Patreon to teach. That being said, Christophe's artwork and accolades speak for themselves and is definitely a selling point of his. And considering the fact that he's worked on concept art for the hit horror game Dead by Daylight, that's another massive selling point in my opinion. And if character design is your sole focus, Christophe's Patreon could be another good resource for you. Overall, I would give Christophe Young's Patreon 4 stars. That being said, I wish Christophe Young good luck on this new chapter of his career, and I'm pretty excited to see what's in store for him. Maybe I'll check in on the Patreon again in the future to see how far it's come, and to me, it's showing a lot of promise to be a unique learning space. Anyway, that's it for the video. If you want to connect or check some of my newbie work, I have an Instagram in the description below. And before you go, here is a funny video of an artist ranting. Anyway, see ya.
We're at a point now where people are watching 30-second YouTube shorts, 30-second TikTok video tutorials, and that is now their form of education. It's come to a point now where people want just literally 10 seconds. Tell it to me in 10 seconds. Like one of the most common comments, one of the most common hate comments I get on my YouTube shorts is people saying like, bro, you didn't really explain anything. You didn't tell me how to draw the face. Well, yeah, no shit, because I got a 3-hour video. I got a 30-day boot camp, 3-hour-long videos each video that can teach you how to draw a head. I'm not going to spend 10 seconds to teach you how to draw a head because that's not going to help you. But that's what people want.